Welcome, friends, once again, to Escaping Dystopia. My name is Roy. I'll be your host tonight. Today is June 13th, 2018, and there's a big storm coming. That's going to be one of the topics for tonight's show. I'd like to thank you for dropping in and listening. I think what we talk about here is important, and I hope it can help inform some of your life and perhaps provide some value or color to your experience here. There's some weird shit going on in our country and on this planet. We're going to talk about some of that tonight. I'm not going to talk like this the whole time, because it's kind of weird for me. Alright, so, excuse me. Howdy, everybody. Anybody drops by. Hello, Michelle. So we're going to talk about some stuff tonight in a more normal tone of voice for me, I think. Kind of a little bit more of my normal show voice, as it were. So, there's a big storm coming. Let's talk about this. Let's go through tonight's topics real quick, just in case anybody wants to jump ahead later after I've recorded the whole darn thing. We're going to talk about that storm a little bit. We're going to talk about the power of myth a little bit tonight. Talk about the North Korea deal. We are going to talk about camps for kids and get an immigration update. We're going to talk about the G7 debacle, or Trump's ascendance to the world leader, and talk about how that's possible. Talk about some voting rights. Talk about our economy and where it might go from here. Talk about the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles. They are from the city of brotherly love, and we're not quite treated that way by the White House. Talk about that, and then a little bit about the concept of someone pardoning themselves, which I find a tad bit odd. So that's the rundown. If that's useful for you, let me know. If not, I can start skipping it. I need to refine a little bit of how we're doing the shizzo here, you know what I'm saying? So if there's anything you like or don't like, let me know either in the comments or directly. It's all good, one way or the other. Yeah. So, I don't know if I've ever done much of the vaping online, but yes, I do that. I don't smoke anymore, though. Terribly often. A bit about the storm. So, it's a little bit, I'm going to talk about this in the first couple sections tonight. So I think there is a big storm coming to our country. What form exactly that's going to take, I'm not entirely sure right now. I do a lot of stuff, and this goes a little bit into this next Power of Myth stuff, but I am a fairly intuitive thinker. What I try to do is get as much good data as I can, and then crunch it, and let my brain work on it. Either, consciously as I'm trying to refine what I think is good stuff, or unconsciously as my brain organizes all the stuff that I'm pounding it with day in and day out. Occasionally this leads to some insights on stuff as you see connections between various things that you may not have noticed when they happen going forward, but as you catalog and think back. Anyway, today I was thinking about it a little bit and some of the stuff and feeling it out, and I think there's something bad coming. Something really bad coming, and I think it's coming pretty soon. So we can test my feelings on that, I think, in the next month. Probably. Most likely. More likely the next couple weeks. So by the time I have another show, maybe I'll be telling you what I was thinking about or what I was feeling. We'll see. I'm just saying, now would be a good time to stock up and be ready. Because things are interesting right now in the world, as we'll talk about a little bit now. And while on the front side, it might seem like there's a little bit less danger, I don't know that that's the case. So, anyway, next topic. Like I said, so I'm a pretty intuitive thinker. I'm going to talk about, and actually, The Power of Myth is a series put together by Joseph Campbell, who's a anthropologist and sociologist, I guess. Studied a lot of people and their cultures. Culturologist, symbologist, I think is what they might make up the word for now. I remember watching this a long time ago, back when I was on my own kind of personal journey, and then saw a show about people who did those kind of journeys and what they find. And there's a bit in there that's about someone like myself, and the kind of drive that brings me to do this kind of stuff, and how I intuitively feel it out, and work towards it. I'll have to watch it. I'm going to watch it again. And if you want to watch it, and if you can see, dear viewer, it's really excellently done. It's on Netflix now, so fairly accessible. It's called The Power of Myth. And I'm going to watch it when I can find the part that I saw before that was like, oh, that's me. I'll tell you about it. Anyway. All right, so on to the news, the real news. Enough of that touchy-feely crap. There was a big deal this week. It was a big deal. The North Korea deal. It was a big deal in some ways, and not so much in others. For those of you who've been paying attention, and I've talked about this before, this was exactly kind of what I thought was going to happen, where it would go on, and nothing would really come of it. There wasn't going to be a big deal, because again, Trump doesn't know what he wants, and he ended up giving up quite a bit. And what we got out of it appears to not really be so much. There's a little while back when North Korea and South Korea met, they signed what was called the Panmunjom Declaration for Peace, Prosperity, and Unification of the Korean Peninsula. And in that, there's a section that I'm going to read to you. Now, the reason why I'm talking about that is because in the agreement that was signed by Trump and Kim, the only reference to denuclearization is to this previous document that had already been agreed on. So there was no new agreement made on denuclearization. It was just a reaffirmation of this declaration of peace, for peace, prosperity, and unification of the Korean Peninsula. Now, in that document, there is a phrase, or a passage that I'm going to read to you, and that has to do with what the goal is, what they've actually said they agreed to. So let me read this to you, all right? South and North Korea confirmed the common goal of realizing, through complete denuclearization, a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. North and South Korea shared the view that the measures being initiated by North Korea are very meaningful and crucial for the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, and agreed to carry out their respective roles and responsibilities in this regard. South and North Korea agreed to actively seek the support and cooperation of the international community for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. So, I want you to understand, and I keep saying it like that, because the way they say it is very, very different than any concept of, well, North Korea is just going to give up their nukes. Because that's not what that says. And that's not North Korea's position. It has never been their position that they will just give up their nukes for that. So what that means, that denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, means that there is no army on the Korean Peninsula that has nuclear weapons. So the only way that they're giving up their nuclear weapons, or even really committing to do it, is when we leave. Because we're the country that actually has brought nuclear weapons and used them in that region. So again, when they're talking about denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula, they're talking about U.S. leaving. And this kind of just complete difference, right, on the fundamental word of what's going on. And so as you understand that, understand North Korea's position is pretty clear. Yeah, sure, we'll give them up when you stop threatening us and leave and get out of the neighborhood. So what I've talked about and I've talked about this a lot on the show, and will continue, is the South China Sea angle. And if you look at a map of U.S. military bases, our closest and most powerful base to that area of the world on land in that area, not on one of the islands in the Philippines or some of the other places, is our Korean base. And if we pull out of there and move off of that completely, that essentially is going to cede that part of the world utterly to China if there was any kind of conflict, because we wouldn't have a base nearby. So we signed a deal that was not really much. I'm glad to see this, actually. I mean, I'm not unhappy to see North Korea opening up a little bit. It is absolutely horrid, right, to ignore the whole human rights angle of what's happened here. And that's been the sticking point why other people wouldn't meet and wouldn't do this and just give it up without something. And just to ignore that utterly and completely, and in fact lend the credibility of the U.S. to Kim is painful to see. I think, and this I was going to talk about the G7 later, but I'll just go ahead and talk about this now. It's because this reflects so much directly on what kind of person the President of the United States is and who he feels comfortable talking to. Now, and I was discussing this earlier with my wonderful wife, and she was bringing up, of course, the point that all these people in the G7, right, these are all democratic leaders who have risen to the top through that kind of traditional role and being, good at that, right? And Trump shows up, and he is not like that at all. He doesn't really even believe necessarily in democracy, right? Most of his campaign, he thought the whole election was rigged, right? And then we see that he got help from foreign powers and this whole thing, and now he's under investigation, so they're rigged and everything. But he doesn't respect the rule of law. He doesn't respect democracy. So he doesn't respect the leaders of democracies and places of rule of law. But who does he really seem to get along famously with, right? You have Jinping in China and Putin in Russia and even Al-Sisi in Egypt, where have gotten praise because of this, because he actually understands and gets along and very much likes that type of leader, that autocratic, authoritarian, you can't question me in our media kind of leader. And that's the idea of, fake news, right, is news that is critical of him. That's how he thinks it should be, and even where the Attorney General should be his personal lawyer and his personal fixer, right? The rule of law, that there is something above and beyond and greater than the person itself, is not something that computes. I think this is part of where I think some of the storm is coming from, because this can only go on for so long. Now, to move on a little bit, we are seeing now this same, and I'm talking about the immigration stuff, so it's going to get a little rough, but there's more and more horrid stories coming out where they took a child from a woman who was breastfeeding that child at the time, and the way this is working means who knows when or if she'll see that child again. Because now what's happening is they're taking so many children that they're becoming overwhelmed. And when that starts to happen, they're now talking about these tent cities and camps for kids because they're taking so many. Because of the zero tolerance policy that Sessions has implemented. And I've had a number of conversations about this with people who support this, and it's just so painful to have to listen to this kind of, the Nazis had laws against Jews, and so, what you gonna do? And that's what their argument is. The law is what the law is, man. Them illegals, doesn't matter, man. You should just come here legally. And at the same time, right, this week, Sessions took over and ruled on a certain case, and it's a little bit, the law stuff of it is a little bit unimportant at this point, but basically what it means is Sessions took a closed case, opened it back up, and ruled that being the target of domestic violence and gang violence was not a grounds for seeking asylum here in the United States. And so this is, again, from the logic standpoint, right, again, they're claiming that all these immigrants are gang members, right? And it's, gang and murderers and rapists coming across the border. But the people who are coming here and bringing their family are fleeing this, are fleeing the violence and looking for that shining hope. And we take their kids away. And that's horrid. And there's no two bones about it. And if that has to be something that I talk about in every show, fuck! But hopefully we can stop this before things get out of control. I don't want to get to that point, right? Where it's so bad and so horrible that on the news they're showing these camps in the Texas sun down on the border with just kids like wandering around, like what? Like just screaming and crying. We're very, very close to this happening, and we're on the trajectory where not only this happens, but a good portion of the country thinks that it's just perfectly fine. There was a story I was reading today. There was a guy, he was in his 60s. He'd been in the country since he was 13. Over 50 years. He was a legal permanent resident. But they looked back 20-something years, or I think it may have been 18 years, and found a domestic violence violation. So they revoked his status, went and picked him up in his front yard, and will deport him. He's been here for 50 years. This is something that happened 20 years ago. That's who they're going after now. The lies, just lies, evil lies they told about only going after the worst are just horrid lies. And they worked. And those lies convinced Republicans that it was cool. And now the Republicans are going with it and cool. And next week we're going to have a vote on the DACA stuff. And if I understand Republicans, it's not going to pass. And then these people are going to start saying, well, we already got the lists of them. Let's round them up and get them out. Just wait. They're going to go after Dreamers. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if that will work. And the thing that kind of sucks about it, people whine about the politics being so bad. If you would like the politics to be better in this country, fight against gerrymandering. Make districts that are competitive and built by computers, and not this kind of crap where you have these safe seats where these people just compete to be the most Republican douche they can. And that will keep all these... They nominated a literal pimp. They nominated a pimp in Nevada. The guy who was on that Cat House show on HBO, he's up for federal office as a Republican. It's horrible. My representatives are on this, and they continue to work that angle. The problem, again, is that no Democrats have any power nationally. They don't run the House, they don't run the Senate, they don't run the executive office, they don't run the Supreme Court. So, with the rule of law, they can't do much right now. So we, as people, have to continue to stay on this. Our family's going to go out and march tomorrow on this. Because they have a detention center nearby, so we're going to go see how many people show up for this. So we'll see how that goes. But this is just unconscionable, people. So we have to get this changed before elections, because this is too many people, too many lives being destroyed too often, systematically. So the G7 debacle, the President of the United States was slow, didn't sign the thing, left early, slammed all the people, got in a fight with the Prime Minister of Canada. For people who like the concept of international law and order and stuff like that, it was horrible. He looked like an idiot and a moron. To his supporters, he looked like he was putting them in their place. And the way that they consume this kind of stuff, that's what they consider him fighting for them, is when he pisses on everybody. To the degree that can work, I don't know. And then that's the thing that's problem is we're actually going to have, I guess, July 1st, Canada's going to kick in their tariffs as retaliatory stuff. This is what he was so pissed off about at the G7, because he thought he had gotten in there and gotten away with it. Like, yeah, we're just going to do what we want and you guys can't do nothing. And then they were kind of polite to him in response. And so he thought he was going to be able to leave and then go over to Singapore and, having gotten away with it. But then he left, and then they're like, yeah, we're still going to do tariffs on you. What? You guys suck, blah, blah, blah. It's ridiculous that we have just this silly man-child, and it's going to come back. I think sooner rather than later now, because now we're going to have some actual retaliations coming that are specific. So we are in a trade war with our allies. And I've noted this in posts, but I mean, looks to be something that this is exactly what Putin wants, to weaken the U.S. and our allies. So now what happens, the U.S. economy has been wonderful for the last little while. I mean, in one sense, I guess, in a number of senses, but the main one that it's not is in wage growth. We haven't seen nearly the kind of wage growth that people would think that would happen. I know why this is not happening. It's because of automation. I don't think this is really quite clicked in for everybody else, that's what's sucking up all this. But that's why you're not getting big salary growth, because there's a lower limit now that I think is rising pretty quickly on, well, it's just going to be cheaper to have computers do it. And I think to the degree, and I think that's going to have a big effect across the economy, as I've been saying for a while, as the singularity gets closer and closer. But so here's the problem that we are in right now. So say the economy changes, right? And it starts to go bad, and there starts to be more people looking for work, and we actually really have a big change in the cycle. So who's the president going to blame, right? Who are his supporters going to blame? Are they going to hold them responsible for throwing off the international order, starting trade wars with our allies, having this ridiculous tax cut, not investing in infrastructure? I mean, blowing the deficit way out of the water. By the way, we had a record deficit this last month since before the major recession. Who are they going to blame, right? All that's going to be is, we've got to ratchet up. We've got to get them even more. We've got to go even harder, right? And say, what happens if the economy doesn't? Right now they're going to start saying, well, it's because we've been kicking out all these, like this 63-year-old man who is out in his front yard, right? So either way, they're going to claim that what they're doing is working. So again, and you're not going to see, I don't think, much of the comeuppance. And that storm that I was talking about earlier, even when that comes, I don't think that it's going to be what a lot of people hope will happen out of it. This is the problem when you have really bad leadership. There's the other thing that I posted about this too this week. For the first time in my life, right? We're in an economy where our unemployment rate continues to drop, but now our deficits are going up. And these two lines, which for basically my whole life have mirrored each other pretty closely. They diverged last time like this when we were in the Vietnam War. But after World War II, it hasn't really happened much. And it's doing it now. And so, again, this goes back to the big thing I was talking about before, where the world drops the U.S. currency. Because why would you want... That's the path we're on, right? Where we're just pissing off all our allies. Nobody wants to keep... So why would you use dollars? Why would you want to use their money? These guys are douche. That's what we're doing. And that's where we're going. And that's going to hurt us. Big time. I do think he's going to start these trade wars and then just, stop them and claim victory. I think people have seen this MO enough now that they know that that's how he works, and that's what he considers to be great deals. And it's I'm going to say, let's see, he's going to claim that he's starting them, he's going to stop them, he's going to claim he got a better deal, and he's going to tweet that anybody who says otherwise is lying, fake news. So that's the cycle. So a couple quick things to finish up here. The Eagles in the White House. So the Philadelphia Eagles finally won a Super Bowl. First time for them. Welcome to the club, guys. And so normally it's a tradition, and this is the least political thing that's supposed to happen. One of the least political things. You have the winning sports team. They come to the White House, you take some pictures, you shake some hands, everybody's happy, and he gets in a Twitter fight about the whole thing. And he ends up not inviting them. And they have this tribute to himself, where he mumbles the Star-Spangled Banner. He doesn't even know the song. The song that he's been screaming about everybody not singing. He doesn't even know it. So this happened a week and a half ago, but it's so egregious. I'm losing my voice, so we're about done for the night. He's doing the same thing with the Warriors, Golden State Warriors. Hey, Bustin, congrats! You got like your 6th trophy in the last 2 years. I think. Sorry, that's the basketball. I'm not a huge NBA fan. I don't have. We don't have cable here in the house, so all we get to see is the finals, which has been the same finals for like the last 4 years. So that's exciting. But anyway, he didn't. He won't. He didn't even invite him. He's not going to even extend an invitation. This is the same guy who, and this is my last point for the night, talks about pardoning himself. And then he says, not that I'd never need to. No innocent person says that. No innocent person thinks like that. And also, to be pardoned, you have to admit guilt. That's the thing. You have to be pardoned for doing something by someone else who is excusing your action. Right? Oh, pardon me. Oh, yes, you may go by. You can't, pardon myself. I am in my own way. Pardon myself. You can't pardon yourself. It doesn't logically work. You can't, forgive me for doing that to me. And now that, okay, fine, you can forgive yourself in the metaphorical sense, but you can't pardon yourself. It just doesn't make logical sense. And I know that doesn't seem to matter anymore, but it matters. And it matters if you think it matters, and I'm going to keep thinking it matters. So there's at least one person who thinks it matters, and that's me, right? So that's given, right? So you can't say no one thinks it matters. Shit still matters, even as ridiculous as it is. So stock up on food, be ready, big storm coming, see you next time. We'll see if I'm wrong. Love to be wrong about stuff like that. North Korea deal, ridiculous. Camps for kids, evil Nazi shit. Don't do evil. Sorry, don't mean to yell. We shouldn't be doing this evil Nazi shit. This is bad. This is bad. It's bad. Bad Nazi. Bad Nazi shit. Don't do it. Yeah, and we got a man-child in charge who made a ridiculous deal. So, woo! Alright. So it is as bad as you think, but it's not that bad and things will get better. And with that confusing message, I'll say good evening. See you next time in a couple weeks. Stay safe. Be good. I love y'all. Peace out.